Hey Exiles, Talkative Tribe back here with another Path of Exile 2 news video because we did receive some juicy new information about the 0.5 expansion alongside some other ARPG reveals that may be of interest to all of you. Here's what we're going to dive into today. The real release window of the next Path of Exile 2 expansion, a glimpse at swords and axes in PoE 2 because it's what the people really want. Why I'm no longer confident about the big 1.0 release dropping in 2026 for Path of Exile 2, the riveting return of Diablo without relying on any cinematics, and an interview with the CEO of Moon Studios, the creators of No Rest for the Wicked, if I can get good. As always, timestamps and sources are in the description below. But before we leap in officially, like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you enjoy my videos. It helps keep the channel talkative. First up, I was wrong, and here is why. On the Chinese social media site Bilibili, Jonathan Rogers himself sent over a message to the Chinese player base for the new year, basically explaining that the reveal for the next Path of Exile 2 0.5 update will be in late April. I predicted the actual update would release on April 10th based on historical releases of leagues between PoE 1 and PoE 2 so far, and the focus really being on pushing Path of Exile 2. Well, I was wrong. It looks like we are going back to the preferred release cadence that GGG outlined years ago, with 2 months between Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2 leagues, which is great for the player base of Exiles who plays both Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1. And honestly, I think everyone, and here's why. Even though, yes, it is unfortunate that there's going to be 4 to 5 months between leagues here for Path of Exile 2, this is giving Grinding Your Games time to cook up something spectacular, to polish it, and make sure it is the best content possible. Remember, they are the developers here. They know how much time they need, and getting those extra 3 to 4 weeks to really make sure the content is up to snuff just means we're going to get a better product at the end of the day, which is awesome. And we know this is going to be a major update to the endgame. He even mentions it in this very video, and there could possibly be some other surprises in store that I'd like to look at right now. Based on the comments on the last video, one of the things you are most excited for are swords and axes in Path of Exile 2. And these actual items have been in the game files basically since the launch of the game. So while many people meme and say, oh, you know, it's not a real game without swords or axes, when are they coming? Oh, they're never coming. I think they might be arriving far sooner than many of you think. Grinding Your Games have been pretty upfront with the fact that the druid and talismans and that whole implementation was extremely difficult, and it's gone through multiple iterations. I don't think that's going to be true for axes and swords. I think now that the druid is in game, that talismans and shape-shifting are officially in the game, they'll be able to roll this stuff out pretty quickly. They already exist in Path of Exile 1. There's already a foundation for this archetype in so many different games. I think now that the druid is out of the way, they can go full steam ahead and get this stuff out pretty quickly. And honestly, I'm confident that next patch, we're going to get one of the two. It's going to be endgame, and I think it's going to most likely be swords and the duelist. I don't think we're going to get all 3 ascendancies right off the bat, but I do think we're going to get swords in a form. Not daggers, just one-handed swords and two-handed swords, which are here in PoE 2 DB. Like I said, if you want to check these out for yourself, in the description below. However, even though now I'm confident we're going to get swords or something along those lines due to an extra month of content development on Grinding Your Games, and I'm no longer as confident as I was before in 1.0 releasing in 2026 after ExileCon in December of this year. With the pushing of this update from early April to May, it then means that the next release would likely be in September, and that would push the PoE 2 update out of December and into 2027 if they're keeping the same cadence. I think what we might see here is a little bit of a shifting for PoE 1 and PoE 2 releases. Maybe we get the Path of Exile 1 update in December, and then we get 1.0 or the next big Path of Exile 2 update next year. And honestly, one thing that I did ignore in my last video that I think needs to be fixed before 1.0 releases and this game goes free to play is performance. maybe we've forgotten a little bit, but performance in Path of Exile 2 is really rough. And I'm not just talking about frames, guys. I'm also speaking about crashes that constantly occur. I've done everything possible, everything you've recommended, everything Grinding Your Games has recommended. I still crash consistently in the game. Tried Vulcan, DX12, didn't go back to DX11. I've tried clearing my cache, upgrading my NVIDIA storage, all that stuff. I still crash, and so do many others. I think they really want to nip those major crashes in the bud before it goes free to play, because first impressions matter, and a lot of people are saving their first impression of PoE 2 for that 1.0 launch. The reason I was so confident in 1.0 coming out this year is because Grinding Your Games have not been extending the goalposts. They haven't been saying, oh, we also need this in-game, and this in-game, and this in-game. They've actually been drawing them closer to themselves. It used to be, we need all the classes in the game, all the acts, a good endgame, good balance, all those things. And now, they basically just said, oh, we need acts 5 and 6. We need swords. We need a good endgame, which should be coming in 0.5, hopefully. And we also need the players to be happy, which I think is a fluff requirement. But as I said earlier, I think the longer they cook this, the better it's going to be. So the only reason 1.0 comes out, and let me say this clearly, is if Grinding Your Games or Tencent have set some arbitrary deadline for 2026, which, based on all historical information, can be pushed. We've had this game pushed multiple times, not only the 0.1 release, but subsequent releases. And while they have said they are currently locking dates, not content, I think it's a little bit of a different story for the big 1.0. So while I am extremely certain the release date for 1.0 will be announced in November at ExileCon on the main stage with Mark and Jonathan, I don't think it necessarily has to be in December of this year. Is this a totally cooked take? Am I wrong? You think that 1.0 is coming this year? Because now I'm not as certain as I was before. Let me know in the comments. Oh, also one more thing to add. The whole financial thing, I realized they could release their core supporter packs in December of this year and have people want to buy them, and then release 1.0 next year if they need a couple more months to polish. So my whole argument of it being the most lucrative time to launch kind of goes out the window if they just release the core supporter packs in December. Alrighty, now time for some Path of Exile 1 news. We got our first teaser for 3.28, The Sands of Time Conspire Against You, which immediately made me think of Zarok, the Temporal, and the Trial of the Sekima. So I did a bit of a meme here, and I said, oh yeah, Sekima, Trial of the Sekima, it's coming to PoE 1 from PoE 2, let's go. Which, for anybody who's played Path of Exile 1, you know that the Trial of the Sekima already exists in Path of Exile 1. It's literally the Forbidden Sanctum, and in PoE 2, it was just upgraded and changed up lore-wise. What's actually going to happen here, as GGG state, the expansion will be themed around the Marikath. That's it. They're likely going to do some asset reuse from the Trial of the Sekima, maybe even take some of the bosses from there, drop them in PoE 1. They are the masters of asset reuse, and I'm pretty confident that's what's going to happen. Don't worry, Izaro is going nowhere. Now, we briefly have to talk about Diablo, everyone. A little bit of history with me. I've never finished Diablo 2, ever. I played it when I was a kid. The farthest I got was Act 3. I tried it again as an adult, and don't murder me, it feels really janky. I think nostalgia is carrying a little bit of the game here. I just could not get into it. However, Blizzard had an absolute W, and they dropped an expansion to Diablo 2 several days ago. They literally shadow dropped a brand new class and a bunch of, here's the key, quality of life modern day features. So everyone, if you haven't seen this before, make sure you check it out. It actually looks pretty lit. The Warlock class looks great. And the quality of life stuff with the stash, loot filters, and the like stacking items looks pretty cool. This might finally push me over the edge to try and finish Diablo 2. I have seen numerous video essays about the game. I've listened to the soundtrack on repeat ad nauseum, but I've never actually finished the game, and I'm playing the spiritual successor to it. It's kind of ridiculous. I really do need to sit down and play through the game in full. I wonder if I play as the Warlock, it might ruin my experience, because apparently he's quite overpowered. And speaking of overpowered, Diablo 4 also has 2 brand new classes, the Paladin, already in game, and the Warlock, which hits with the new expansion on April 28th, which indeed sounds like it will be clashing directly with Path of Exile 2's 0.5 expansion, which is honestly unfortunate. Don't come at me, guys. Don't come at me. Come on. I have so many videos on this channel, early days of the channel, where I was pitting PoE 2 up against Diablo 4, and unfortunately, I was stoking some of that polarization. I don't like that I did that, but I did. Gotta live with myself. At this point, guys, wrong about Diablo 4 too. They seem to be turning it around with the new leadership. I watched several videos on it. I read all the information coming into the game with this expansion, and I watched gameplay of the new classes. Actually look quite a bit better than the old classes. Now, my biggest issue with Diablo 4, honestly, is the open world and the animations. I'm just not a fan of the animations and the open world in the game. The other stuff, pretty decent, honestly. I'm not the biggest build crafter, so the whole simplicity doesn't really mar me that much. It's really just the 2 things I mentioned there that really put me off from the game itself. So while I probably won't be trying the next expansion on April 28th, I do think I'm going to leap back in and give the Warlock and the Paladin a try at some point in the future, and I'd be really curious to hear if some of you guys will as well. From my community, I've seen that the Paladin especially was extremely fun. People have been having a blast with it. It shadow dropped right next to the Druid for the 0.4 update, and a lot of people actually said they enjoyed the Paladin more than the Druid, which is interesting. Really need to give Blizzard props here. They had a successful announcement and the dropping of Diablo 2 Resurrected, and there was a ton of hype without being purely carried by the cinematics, even though the cinematics for the Warlock were pretty lit. And one more thing here. So there's another ARPG in this space, No Rest for the Wicked, that I have tried twice, bounced twice. The first time after 10 minutes, the second time after about an hour, purely due to my skill issues. I've never played a Dark Souls game. I've played about 4 hours of Elden Ring. I've never played Sekiro or any of that stuff. Even though people say I love Souls-likes, I've never played a Souls-like because I'm terrible at them. Well, lots of people have enjoyed No Rest for the Wicked. So much so that I know I need to give it an honest shot. And somebody tagged me and said, oh, you should talk with Thomas Mahler, who is the CEO of Moon Studios, the creators of No Rest for the Wicked. And I said, well, I would love to, but first I actually have to play the game. I really need to play the game. I need experience with the game. I can't talk to the devs of the game if I haven't played the game. Well, he responded to the tweet and said, let's do it. So I need to get good, solve my skill issues, and play this game, and then I can have a great conversation with Thomas Mahler. For those of you who don't know, this guy is an absolute savage on Twitter. He goes into other competitors and he breaks down game design in an absolutely straightforward and compelling way. I love reading his tweets. He goes into how Path of Exile 2 and Diablo 4 or any other ARPGs of the current day aren't actual evolutions of the genre, but No Rest for the Wicked is. He essentially talks about how they've been stuck in the ways of combat that were created back in 2000 when Diablo 2 released, the point-and-click methods, whereas No Rest for the Wicked is taking the learnings of other developers who found better ways to do combat and implementing it into the Diablo-like, Exile-like, isometric ARPG genre and really trying to push the niche forward. It's interesting stuff, and I'd love to pick his brain about these game design elements. I feel like it would actually be able to be one of those conversations where I could just talk to the developer about designing the game and ask him questions about the game itself and not balance and upcoming content, which is it's kind of the hole I've found myself in with Jonathan and Grinding Your Games, because whenever I'm interviewing them, people want to hear about the new content. They want to hear about balance decisions. They want to know why this part of the game is bad and why Grinding Your Games are making these decisions. But I feel like with Thomas, be able to talk literally about why he's designing the game in the way that he is with his team. And that would be really compelling, and that's very attractive to me. And that's going to wrap it up, everyone. Make sure to tune in to the live reveal for the next Path of Exile 1 expansion, which I will be co-streaming on February 26th. and to subscribe, leave a comment, like. I will be posting all Path of Exile 2 news, info, and the like here on this channel. And if you liked me talking about other ARPGs, which I am going to be giving a shot at, let me know in the comments too. I really want to try to branch out and not keep so PoE2 minded. I think it would be good for me. And I think if you guys enjoy it, that'll be cool too. Remember, if you enjoy the content, thank you. Dropping a like, sharing your thoughts in a comment, or subscribing means a lot and helps keep the channel talkative.